Hey everybody, welcome to On Location with Harvey and Gabby. I'm Harvey and that's Gabby right over there. How did you guys kind of start Epoch Wellness? And what is it about?
Yeah, I think for me, it just came from a place of working a lot. I mean, I think we all know a lot about that, just working and maybe being a little bit tired and needing a refresh. And it just made me think of ways where I could help myself with that. And that's how kind of Epic Wellness started, and it sparked there. And it made me think of Tabitha, who um, I met through a friend named Marcus, and she has a huge wealth of information when it comes to like traditional Chinese medicine, something that I am not super familiar with. I just have little bits and pieces from my parents. So that's kind of when I reached out to her and we had this conversation, and that's where this grew. So, Tabitha, if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I remember you reaching out like a few months ago and you're like, "Oh man, I want to I'm tired. I'm at this like this like holiday blues. I'm feeling kind of stuffed and I'm wanting some type of cleanse." And I remember you mentioning like a juice cleanse, like a detox cleanse. And you're like, "Oh, well, I like that concept of bringing something healthy in the winter, like a wellness type of thing. But how do we make it our own? How do we make it coming from a place of Vietnamese, Chinese culture, TCM?" And then we just started, I think we were just spitballing,
Mhm.
around with these ideas. And then I was like, okay, I kind of get the idea of a juice cleanse, but that is like not a Chinese concept, or it's not an Asian concept. So how do we make it work for us? And how do we make it align with your Vietnamese restaurant, with the vision? And also like coming from my desire to really promote and play with traditional ancestral medicine and wisdom and make it really accessible, make it really practical. Um, and why not do it with like Edmontonians? Like, why don't we make it Edmonton specific?
Mm,
We're not trying to like reinvent the wheel or anything. There's tons of TCM, like modern TCM things out here already, but I don't know. It was just like a fun thing for us to play with, the concept.
right.
Yeah.
So it's hard for like a lot of younger people to kind of get into traditional Chinese medicine. How was that something you decided you were interested in and wanted to get into?
It's it's just a new like a realized passion of mine, and like working with like primarily second gen Asians. Not to gatekeep or to separate anything else, but I'm noticing like, oh, I'm really excited about just bringing back and reminding our own community of this wealth of knowledge, and that in particular, obviously, it's the younger generation. They're the ones that maybe they've been assimilated in our Canadian culture so much so that they have forgotten about this medicine, our culture, and there are so many misconceptions or just not knowing about it. And so to kind of bring it back and be like, yo, this is like our birthright. There's all this wealth of knowledge. There's so many other people that are recognizing this. You see acupuncture, you see TCM, you see cupping in the Olympics. There are a lot of people, like the rest of the world is catching on, and they're seeing how useful it is, how effective it is, how important it is. And so I'm like, yo, who better to talk about this medicine or explore this medicine than our own people, and to really reclaim it. I mean, everyone gets to experience Chinese medicine and ancestral medicine, but I was just like, wow, I really want to focus in on younger people rediscovering this. Yeah, and finding relevancy to this. Yeah.
I think, all of us growing up in Canada for the majority of our lives, I think, and, doing post-secondary, it's like we're used to kind of like the scientific method and drugs and medicines being regulated and approved through bodies like, I mean, the FDA is American, but it's just something that's all in our psyches. And I think maybe that's what many of us think is the correct way or the better way. But, you know, but in the back of our pantries, you know, at my mom's house, there's all these herbs and things that I don't really know anything about. Like, we just consume them, but didn't know the history of it. So it's like, wait, there's something missing here.
When did you kind of discover that this was something that not only you were interested in, but you kind of wanted to pursue a further path in and like kind of embrace it? Because I know that like with some of the folks we've talked to, there seems to be this like odd phase in life where like you almost are pushing away culture and you're like, I want to, you know, like especially if you've immigrated, like I'm sure most of us have, like you like push away like I'm Canadian, and then eventually like as you grow up, you're like, now I want to be more in tuned with where I come from and culture and everything. So when did it kind of really happen where you were like, hey, I like this, and then you pushed it further, and then you kind of like, I want to do more in this field?
Man, that's such a good question.
Yeah, sometimes I have those.
So,
Yeah.
I see myself going further.
Yeah.
I feel really blessed that I'm second generation. My parents grew up in Hong Kong, and I grew up in a household like maybe many others that our culture was like quite intact. We spoke Cantonese in the house. I went to Chinese school on Saturdays at U of A. I ended up volunteering to become a Cantonese teacher. And I've always been like I've had this like nostalgia and sentimentality towards Chinatown culture and whatnot as a child. And when I was 17, I graduated high school and I joined a program called Katimavik, and it changed my life. And it really opened me up to different avenues of living, maybe more unconventional ways of living. And so I really had this experience of like traveling around Canada, experiencing different livelihoods. A lot of it had to do with farming and working with the land and working with plant medicine. And at that time, I was also really into Eastern philosophy. And I traveled a lot, and I had, worked on a lot of farms, worked with plants, and it became more and more evident that I loved working with my hands and like practically, but I wanted to do more. And so I was like, well, I really like working with plant medicine. I'm really interested in Eastern philosophy and like longevity practices and all these like esoteric things. I love learning languages. I love traveling. Why don't I just go to China and study Chinese medicine? It just seemed like, I don't know, it just seemed like a no-brainer to me. And so I lived in China. I moved to China, did my undergrad there in a city called Jinan. And like China, it sounds really dramatic, but like China broke me. I had all these ideas of what it was to be Chinese. And I really thought I knew. I had a little bit of like hubris, and I got there and I was like, whoa, no, you have to, you are a guest in China, but like China is a pretty intense host. And I really learned a lot of things there. And I think honestly, Gabby, to pinpoint a moment, I think when I came back to Canada and I had some reverse culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
It was really connecting and slowly discovering people like Yvonne, people like our friend Marcus, and all these other second-gen Chinese or Asians who were also really interested in this path of being like, wait, actually, there's something precious here. I can't quite pinpoint what it is, but it's interesting, and I see there's value in it. So back around COVID, a little bit before COVID, we started this group called the Chinese Diaspora Sharing Circle.
Oh.
And yeah, and there was maybe, I don't know, 24 of us, and it was just a bunch of us that had like Asian roots, and we would meet up every so often. And there was this one guy that did Chinese calligraphy, and then one person taught us how to make dumplings, and we just all came together, and we all kind of shared our desire to like connect more with it. And so I think that was like a big accumulation of all these things from a more inward kind of interest, curiosity, and then really like immersing myself in Asian culture, and then really coming back and being like, oh, I think there's something there. I think there's something really interesting there. Long
Mm.
story.
No, that was fantastic. A great
Um,
answer.
I kind of wanted to back up a little bit. Like you said, when you went to China, you had sort of an idea of what like maybe being Chinese is before you went there. Did you kind of have that with like traditional Chinese medicine? Like you were like, this is what I thought traditional Chinese medicine was, but you kind of realized you learned it from like a Western perspective, and then you got there and they were like, no, this isn't really what it does, kind of thing.
That's a good question. No,
Oh,
no, because kind of like what Yvonne was saying, you know, she grew up, we grew up with the Asian medicines in the back of the cabinet, and we just did it. It was so normal. So it was ingrained. There was that experiential understanding, kind of like what Yvonne was talking about. And so I went directly to China to study with my undergrad. So there wasn't so much of like a Western education on it. Yes, I did read books in English about it. But I don't think I felt that with Chinese medicine. I think truly it became from a theory to experiential understanding of concepts like yin and yang. Because I feel like in China, it's just so apparent. You know, they live a totally different worldview, and the way that they see the world is completely different. It is like yin and yang. You see it all the time. You know, Chinese medicine, this Chinese ways of thinking is so integrated. You cannot separate those things. I remember one of my like first year professors in the foundations of Chinese medicine, he said, you cannot separate Chinese medicine and Chinese culture. You can't learn one without the other. And so like growing up, even we were second gen, but like growing up, we were steeped in that culture, whether we understood it or not.
that's a really good answer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. No, I wanted to briefly kind of touch base. You had said something that was like very profound and kind of caught me a bit off guard. You said that kind of when you got there that like it broke you to be there. I'm someone who I spent like when I immigrated here, got here, spent so long here that by the time I had gone back to kind of visit the Middle East, it was like a huge culture shock for me. And I learned that not even like simple things like the slang I was using, terms are like, we don't use that anymore. And I feel like in a sense, I had like a huge like I was excited to go over, visit, be there. But then after a while, I was like, I feel like a fraud, and I feel like I'm not even that Middle Eastern because like all I can do is kind of speak the language half decently, enough to be conversational, but not enough to like feel like I belong. But like after spending some time, that happened. So my question to you was going to be like, what is it that you found that kind of like was that big of a shock, or like what advice would you give someone who maybe has not been there in a hot minute and is trying to go there, visit, and integrate again?
Oh man, that's so good.
Yeah.
The thing that broke me was the bureaucracy. Really, like it was the culture.
Oh.
You know, I remember like yes, I have yellow skin, or like, you know, I'm Asian, but
Mhm.
I've been cultured in through Western education, and it like in the Western world. And so when I came to China, I had all of these ideas of like, okay, things need to be efficient in this way, and like they need to be ordered, and like why is everything taking forever? And I got so irritated by the perceived inefficiency of things. And I remember I like was clashing with my school and the dean, and I had the audacity to like go straight to my dean and talk to her and stuff like that, which is like you don't do that in Asian culture. You don't do that. But I was coming from this like Western mindset of like really trying to like bull in a China shop, like just get things done. And that's not China, that's not Asian culture. That's not Chinese culture. There is like, you know, you move with water. It's way more nuanced. And so it's so funny because like with my brutishness, what brought me down to my knees was how futile that like energy was. And the thing that brought me down was like, and the thing that held me was like the softness of China. And so it was just this like, it was this this like overarching lesson of like yin and yang. And it's just so beautiful. And yeah, like China's so, it's so hard to pin down. China is like, you know, when you're trying to put a ball underwater and you're trying to like holding down, that's China. And now I'm kind of waxing poetic, but there's the first line of the Tao Te Ching, and it goes Dao Ke Dao, Fei Chang Dao, and it means the Tao that can be named is not the Tao, and like that's China. Is like the China that can be named is not China. Like it's so complex and nuanced and crazy, and that's what I got to taste. I'm not saying that I'm this great understanding person that can like share all of this with the world, but I'm just saying I got to taste it. And so now I know the difference. And I also want to speak, Gabby, about like your experience going back to the Middle East and how like we had like it's been encapsulated our learning of our culture because our immigrant parents came, or like you came, and then like the world moves on in the Middle East, or like the world moves on in Hong Kong. Like I went last year and I had like a huge crisis. No, oh my gosh, it's not the same as, you know, as it once was. And there's some grief there for sure.
I know some people have reservations about kind of going back to find out, explore, and connect with their like heritage culture and everything. What advice would either of you kind of give? Yvonne, I'm going to go to you first, and then we're going to come back to Tabitha. If you have any kind of reservations about going back to just learning, seeing, experiencing, and connecting with your culture, what would you say to someone?
Reservation. You know, I think kind of what we were talking about earlier, you know, there's this desire for us, you know, being in Canada to assimilate and be like the dominant culture. Like I had that for many, many years. But I think for me, wanting to look back actually didn't really happen necessarily with my family. I think because there was war, it's like Vietnam, there's escaping the war. So we didn't have a super strong culture, like not necessarily like Tabitha had. Like there wasn't an emphasis on language or culture or anything. It was more just like assimilate, let's try and just do better and, you know, make money and educate ourselves. But it wasn't until like I worked with, and I think I'd mentioned this before in kind of another conversation that we've had, like in like Blackfoot elders, and I saw like this deep connection and wanting to reconnect with their culture, and it was like a mirror to me, and it made me look like, wait, what about my roots? And it was just this beautiful thing where seeing the elders wanting to connect with Indigenous youth and leaving me in a spot where like, wait a minute, I want to look at my own culture and more deeper rather than just like food, you know. I have a Vietnamese restaurant, yes, but it's so much deeper than that. And it's like finding those lost things that get lost in like war and parents who are refugees. And yeah, there's something lost there that needs to be found. So I definitely encourage everyone to look back because it's enriching. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tabitha, any notes, comments?
Oh man, I'm just like, I'm getting emotional, like listening to Yvonne talk about how just like lost and found, and like just the treasures that we hid or let go of because of things like war or survival, and assimilation. Yeah, that's there's a lot there to unpack. And I think like what like to like switch it over, it's like, oh my gosh, getting to travel to a place that you like ancestrally have lineage to is so epic. I read somewhere, and maybe I'm butchering this fact, but I read somewhere where like the stomach digests, it takes like up to 4 to 6 generations to change your gut biome.
Really?
Yeah, to the culture of like the new land.
That
So
makes so much sense.
yeah, and and I just went for a walk with a girlfriend who just came back from Hong Kong and Asia, and she lives here in Canada now. And she was like, "Oh man, my hair was better, my skin was better, I was feeling better." I was like, "Yeah, it's a no-brainer. That's where we're from. Like we're produced there." And so what a cool experience to just try it out. Like there's no like, yeah, maybe it gets awkward, like Gabby said. We have these ideas and we have to confront them, but ultimately there's so much healing in it. There's so much reward. If you just push through a little bit and really hone in on what a beautiful experience that can be. And then my like one specific tip is to really lean on family.
You mentioned something about decolonizing traditional Chinese medicine a little bit. What did you mean by that?
Oh, that's a bit of a hot topic thing. Oh man, it's so loaded. And I'm still trying to untangle it all. Oh man, where do I even start? Yeah,
I can try to give some aid here, but I'm just gonna try to push it from the perspective of like the Middle East, and like to us a lot of like history and such, because the region is old, much like various regions of Asia, Africa, and everything. Like it's many a times history is written by the victors, and then nowadays we are learning very quickly that wait a minute, this isn't right, and then as soon as you trace it to like when did this kind of strew away from what we had and what we knew, it seems to kind of coincide with like when there were wars and certain factions were trying to take over, and like it impacted not only like the history demographic and everything through that, but also how history was taught going forward. So was it a case of like um that was kind of what encroached in, and it's trying to release from that and go back? Or am I just throwing in the dark?
I
Yeah.
to quickly expand, I guess from like what it sounded like when you guys were talking about earlier, from what it sounded like to me is also just like on things like social media. Sometimes I'll see a person talking about like traditional teas and like tea ceremonies, but they're not really from that culture, but they're speaking on it with such like authority, and it makes me
sure.
kind of wonder like, hey, how come a Chinese person isn't talking about this? You know?
It's so valid. I think, oh man, Harvey, yeah. I'm just like so passionate about this that I don't even, I'm like,
Yeah.
I think to start off, what do I mean by decolonizing Chinese medicine? I think, yeah, essentially just goes back to who are the people telling these stories and who's benefiting from this. And there's a lot of camps, there's a lot of ways to go about it. And I want to be able to have this conversation in the most nuanced, sophisticated, like spacious way. Because
Mm.
it's not about saying like you did this or like you can't do this or like we're the ones to do this. That's like really not the point. I think it's more about how do we uplift uh the people that can really benefit from this, like our community. I'm kind of fumbling with my words a bit. But I think about how when I came back to Canada and I got my license for acupuncture, and I was realizing that like, oh yeah, there are predominantly like a certain type of people that are practicing in Canada, and there's different ways of, like, even in the Chinese medicine world, in the acupuncture world, there are like 4 camps, I would say, of people that there's like the Asian practitioners that are like, we got to like assimilate and we got to make this as scientific and like speak the language, like translate it so a wider audience can understand this.
Mm.
We got to do what we got to do to modernize this and to bring it out to the people. And that might be kind of like the social media people. And then there's another group of maybe more like Asian practitioners that are like, no, we need to like hold this integral. We got to keep this pure. We got to do it the traditional way. None of that other stuff. but there's a little bit of gatekeeping energy there. And then maybe there's like the non-Chinese who are like, oh, we like, let's just run with this. This is amazing. This could be like a cash cow. And like, and also like, it's super necessary. There's so many sick people in the world, so many like chronic issues. And Chinese medicine actually happens to be really good at addressing chronic illnesses and things that maybe Western medicine, they don't have, they're just not so there yet. For example, like autoimmune things or things that maybe like Western biomedicine is like, okay, we got surgery and maybe some tests. Like, this is what we got. Chinese medicine can really fill in the gaps with things like that. And then the last camp, I would say, are maybe non-Chinese who are like also really purists, and they're like, we want to do it a certain way, which also is kind of like what Harvey's talking about. It's like, oh, this person really seems to like have a lot of backing with what they're talking about, but they're not, you know, Asian presenting or whatever. Like, oh, like maybe you're feeling a sort of type of way about that. So I kind of went a bit specific there, but there's a lot happening. And I think all four groups or like all types of people, what they have to say is really important. But I think ultimately it just goes back to who's telling the stories, who's benefiting from this, and like, what's the legacy we want to pass on? Why are we doing what we're doing?
For us, like with Epoch Wellness, we're trying to, at its core, to make it not an unstressful project, like something that's holistic at its core. When we're like, oh, we want to release these drinks, you know, in January. And, you know, it doesn't happen because Tabitha has a lot going on. I have a lot going on. We have, you know, our lives. And it's like, wait a minute, let's just slow down for a minute. And we had to really, at its core of Epoch Wellness, build that into it, which is really tough because, like Tabitha is saying, and like we all notice, we are in a society that is not built like that. So it's like we're trying to build our own projects and businesses and systems like differently, just trying to operate a little bit differently. So I mean, I don't think that really helps you or maybe any of us for that matter, because we're in this environment. But I mean, slowly kind of it's a way of decolonization too. It's like, wait a minute, why are we, you know, like in Vietnam, people are late all the time. It's like, that's just because that is life.
It's really about taking the time to slow down. I know it's easier said than done, but really just taking that time in whatever capacity to get back to that place. And so like our hope is that these drinks are just an invitation of that. They're a very easy, accessible, playful, convenient way to just be like, oh yeah, okay, well, I'm gonna get some like sandwiches or lunch at Yvonne's place. Oh, well, maybe instead of getting like a soft drink, I'm gonna have this tea instead, because that seems to like that will like complement what I'm eating.
I know you guys have a lot of different blends of tea. Could you talk about some of your favorite blends and what they do or what they're about?
The teas that we offer, that Yvonne and I have worked together on, they are herbal teas. So they're not tea from the tea plant, but they're herbal teas, they're blends. And so the whole concept was something seasonal. And so following the rhythms of nature, which is like a very strong tenet of Chinese medicine, and then specific to Edmonton. So we were like brainstorming, we were like, what's good? And we narrowed down on Edmonton being cold. And so a tea that addresses just like this cold winter in Edmonton, and also a tea that addresses the dry climate of Edmonton. And then also a tea that addresses depression or seasonal affective disorder. And so kind of like a more like of like a mood enhancing type of tea. And off the top of my head, I don't remember them all, but the one that I personally have been drinking myself quite a bit is the one for seasonal affective disorder. I experienced that quite a bit. And it's a simple blend of rosebud and finger citron. So it's like a dried fruit peel, very bitter. We offer the tea with a little bit of like a simple syrup, like a natural syrup to add to taste. I mean, if you're a brave soul, you can just have it bitter, but that's like a way to make it more accessible and more drinkable.
So we do have a winter spring menu for Epoch Wellness. So right now, the idea is to place like a week's worth of beverages. So you get like bottles. So it's really nice and like pre-brewed bottles. So it's really easy to consume. So like every day, like Tabitha's saying, like there's some that you could just sip all day, some where you'll take for 3 days, and then perhaps you'll choose 2 other drinks where you drink for the rest of the week. So there's kind of different ways to consume it depending on what you choose from the menu. So yeah.
So I know you guys said you haven't officially launched yet.
Yeah.
When are you planning to do that?
It's kind of a quiet launch right now. So yes, so you are able to order immediately. So
Nice.
yeah.
It's like
We just
once
haven't done the
once
big,
we set up orders, yeah.
yeah, that's right. That's right. We haven't done the big social media push or anything like that. We're really being intentional with how we launch this. And yeah, we want it to be as good for everyone else as it is for us. And yeah.
Yeah, and eventually, I mean, like spring, summer is coming up. Summer's
Yeah.
coming. We have that ready, like starting to be. It will be ready to go as well as
We're
the
working on that.
future progress. Yeah, and
Yes.
also this is kind of like beta. We're like this is like the beta product, so we're still playing around with packaging and flavor and how that works out. So we're super open to feedback.
Yeah.
And we want this to be collaborative. We want this to be exciting. We want this to be accessible. And yeah, would love to hear ideas as well.
Very informative, and thank you for also sharing kind of your experiences and how things were for you, and how you kind of discovered and found that this is what you enjoy and like, and how you connected. So that was always wonderful to kind of always love sharing that kind of discussion with the people behind, I guess, like the brands, the ideas, and the concepts. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Once again, I am Harvey. That's Gabby, Tabitha, and Yvonne from Epoch Wellness. Check them out at, what was it? bondmediddy.ca/epoch.
Right.
Yeah. Did I say that right this time?
Yeah.
I'm like, we're open to different names as well.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Great. Thank you guys so much. And we will see you all next time.